Today I want to talk a little bit about how do we graft apple trees and why do we graft apple trees. So out there on the internet you can find apple rootstocks, and they come in all different numbers and there's nomenclature behind that, and that will dictate, the rootstock will dictate what size apple tree you're going to get. And these that we're looking at are EMLA 7s. They are a 50 to 60% standard size tree, and so they're what we would consider a semi-dwarf. And all EMLA 7s throughout the world are the same. And so you can order your rootstocks. They should run you on the order of $1, maybe $1.50 with shipping to get them. And so you're looking at the rootstock controlling the overall size of the apple tree. And then what you need is you need the scion wood, and this is part of the tree that will control what the fruit is. And so this is an enterprise, but you can have a chieftain, you can have a Fuji, you can have a gala. These are all water sprouts, and not all water sprouts are created equal. The buds that are down towards the end of the tree aren't really good for grafting, and the buds at the very tip aren't good for grafting. And so really on this tree, we should be able to make 2 or 3, possibly 4 new apple trees of the same clonal variety. And it starts with having, again, a pair of bypass loppers that are sharp and that are sanitized. And this is a special knife, but if you're doing this at home, you can use a sharp dinner knife, or really a razor blade works well. This one is a single-sided knife, meaning it's got a single bevel on the edge, and you'll see why that's important here in a minute. So when I've picked my rootstock, I'm looking for a straight side that I can graft to. And when you go to buy your apple trees, if you've noticed there's a little bump on that apple tree up about 3 inches from the top of the soil line, that's the graft union. And what we're going to do is we're going to teach you the simplest is just a simple wedge type graft. So I've come up basically one hand, which is about 3 inches, and I'm looking for a straight side on that tree. And what I find right here is a straight side. And so I'm going to take my loppers, I'm going to come straight in off of this, and I'm going to make a cut, all right? And so now I've told myself where I want to make that union. So then I'm going to set that aside, and I'm going to pick up my my scion wood, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to try to find a straight side. And I see up here about 3 inches, there's a really nice straight side to that. So I'm going to come in on the underside of it, and I'm going to cut. Now what you have to do, and again, you're using a sharp knife, I have the straight side towards me. And what I want is I'm going to come in, and I'm going to, hopefully with a single pull, I'm going to make the first side of my wedge. And then I'm going to rotate it over, and I'm going to put that now facing down. And I'm going to put the knife right where I started that wedge on the other side. And I'm going to move my thumb and then pull straight towards me. And what I've done is now I've made a wedge. So what I need, and I'm going to clean this edge up, all right? Now you want to keep these wet. You need to keep them moist before they dry out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to count up the number of buds, and I like to run about 4 live buds on this. So here's one, there's one here, there's a little one here. So I'm going to prune this at about a 45-degree angle, all right? So you can see that, and prune that up. All right, now I want it to stay wet. So normally I would stick this in my mouth to keep it wet, or dip it into water. So I'm just going to do that. I'm going to set it aside. And this is the part at which you normally cut yourself. And so what I want you to do is go get yourself a pair of fish fillet gloves, all right? Double duty, all right? You get new fish fillet gloves every year, and you get to prune apple trees every year. All right, so I'm back to my rootstock now, and I know my flat side is right about here. This is the side that I'm going to mate this to, all right? I'm going to put this right in there. When I'm done, those two will be as one. So I have to create a slit. And so what I'm actually going to do is, using the chainmail so I don't cut myself, I'm going to start my knife And again, the single bevel knife is going to want to dive off to the side. So I'm going to start in here, and I'm just going to go right to the middle, and I'm going to work myself down. I'm going to keep working, and I'll torque that knife just a little bit to ease the crack down through there. You can see just below the knife, it's beginning to crack open. And I work myself down, all right? Normally, this is where people will cut themselves. And you need to get down just to where you can slip that wedge that you've cut of scion wood down in. So I'm there now. I pulled it out, all right? And what I need to do is I need to line up the bark to the bark. So I'm just going to slide this in carefully so I don't damage the bark, all right? And you can see now I've aligned that edge. The edge just under the bark is that cambial zone, which is going to fuse together. They make rubber bands that they degrade with sunlight, all right? But what you're going to do is you have to fuse and force those two callus zones together. And we're going to use the rubber bands, and I'm going to pull and I'm going to twist as I go around here, all right? What I'm doing is I'm forcing those zones, and I'm just overlapping ever so slightly. I'm coming around, I'm making sure that it's putting wood to wood. And then when I get to the top, this is where practice will make perfect. You need to be able to come around the top and seal off that top. You don't want the moisture loss through the top. And you can see my pointer finger is working with my thumb to keep this wrap tight. So now what I do is I'm coming down, and you don't need to do multiple wraps. Now what you need to do is tie this off, and this is normally where I end up breaking it. All right, so now I've just done a single loop on that. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a wet paper towel on the roots so we don't dry our roots out. I'm going to put this in a plastic bag, and I'm going to put it in the refrigerator, and I'm going to lay it down flat. Over the course of 10 days to 2 weeks, what will happen is those zones just under the bark will form a vascular structure. It'll callus together, and then when you plant this out in 2 to 4 weeks, when the growing season begins, this tree will put out new roots, and one of these buds will begin to grow into a new tree. What I like to do in the first year, once I've planted this just at that depth, all right, so I'm about 3 inches to that knot that will form, I'll leave 2 of these buds grow for that first year. And you have to be very careful because of the hybrid vigor that will happen. These 2 buds will grow really rapidly. And you can have graft failure because it really hasn't had time to mature. And so you need to be careful. What I would do is I'd put this in a rabbit tree tube and make sure that it's staked quite well. And you know, apple trees graft really easily. You should have 90+% success. And so what I've done is I've just made myself a $1.50 apple tree, which in 3 to 4 years will be equivalent to what you buy in those 5 or 10 gallon pots at the farm store for $20. So I'm doing a poor man's orchard, and I'm just supplying a little bit of scion wood, a little bit of rootstock, and time.